Assalamualaikum, we are Group 7 and today we'll be discussing motivation in the context of social psychology. Specifically, we'll be focusing on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, which explores how our needs drive our behavior from basic survival needs to the pursuit of self-actualization. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a well-known theory in social psychology that explains human motivation. It suggests that we are driven by a series of needs, starting with basic ones like food and water, and moving up to more complex needs like self-esteem and self-actualization. At the core of this theory is the idea that unmet needs create motivational pressure. If we are hungry or in danger, for example, our motivation is directed towards fulfilling those basic needs first. Only once those are satisfied can we focus on higher level of needs such as belonging to a group, gaining respect, and eventually realizing our full potential. So, Maslow also acknowledged that motivation isn't always linear. We don't always follow this strict order. People often pursue multiple needs at the same time, and our social and cultural environment can influence which needs become a priority. For instance, someone might prioritize social belonging or esteem needs even if their basic needs are not fully met. The theory is particularly useful for understanding why people engage in different behavior. It explains why we seek out relationships, strive for recognitions, or even perform acts of kindness. Motivation, according to Maslow, is deeply tied to our need to satisfy these different layers of needs, each one building upon the last until we reach the goal of self-actualization or the desire to become the best version of ourselves.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. For my part, I will be explaining about the secular perspective on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and briefly compare it with the Islamic perspective. Firstly, personal achievement. Maslow, he believed that people move step by step through basic needs, aiming for self-actualization, which means becoming the best version of themselves for personal fulfillment. Religion or spirituality in this concept is optional here. In contrast, the Islamic perspective places spiritual growth and connection to God as central to human fulfillment, not just personal achievement. Secondly, hierarchical structure. Maslow's model has 5 levels with the later addition of a 6th level called self-transcendence, which involves helping others. Progress through these levels happens only when lower needs are met. The Islamic view integrates both material and spiritual needs from the start and emphasizes that serving others and worshipping God are part of human purpose throughout, not just at the top. Thirdly, heat focus and limitation. The secular model mainly focuses on material and psychological needs and lacks a spiritual aspect. It is also rigid, assuming that same order for everyone, and it is based on Western individualism. Islam, however, balances individual and communal needs and includes a strong spiritual dimension that guides motivation and behavior. Next, human motivation. In the secular perspective, motivation is driven by personal satisfaction and self-actualization. In Islam, motivation is deeply connected to pleasing God, Allah SWT, and fulfilling one's duties to both self and society. So, while the secular model focuses on personal and material growth, the Islamic perspective adds spirituality and community as essential parts of human motivation.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a popular psychological theory that explains what motivates human behavior, from basic survival to personal growth. But how does this compare with the Islamic view of human needs and success? In Maslow's model, success is often defined by achieving self-actualization, which is being the best version of yourself. But in Islam, success isn't just about personal fulfillment or achievements in this world. It's about how well a person fulfills their duty to Allah and to humanity. This is done by balancing two vital relationships, which is Hablum min Allah, our relationship with Allah, and Hablum min Nas, our relationship with others. In Islam, human needs are structured in 3 levels, as outlined in Maqasid Sharia, which is Ad-Daruriyat, the essential things that we must have to survive, Al-Hajiyat, things that ease and facilitate life. These are not critical, but they prevent the hardship. Al-Tahsiniyat. Al-Tahsiniyat is the things that beautify life, adding comfort, dignity, and refinement. The Ad-Daruriyat are rooted in the preservation of 5 key elements. The first one is Ad-Din, which is the religion. The religion is the most fundamental. Without preserving faith, other elements lose their meaning. The second one is An-Nafs, which is the life or the self. Life is sacred. Islam protects it by prohibiting harm and encouraging safety. Al-Aql, which is the intellect. Islam encourages education and knowledge, as shown in the first revealed word, which is Iqra, read. An-Naslu, progeny. The family is central to society. Islam protects it by promoting marriage, parenting, and moral values. Al-Mal, which is wealth. Islam allows wealth ownership but mandates purification through zakat and ethical earning. One of the strengths of the Islamic model is its contextual flexibility. What is usually considered a convenience, al-hajiyat, can become a necessity, which is ad-daruriyat during a crisis. For example, access to the internet might not be essential in normal times, but during a pandemic, it becomes a crucial for education, livelihood, and even religious practices like online classes and Friday sermons. In Islam, spirituality or ruh is central to motivation. Everything we do, eating, working, studying, can be considered ibadah or worship if done with the right intention or niyah. When a Muslim faces loss or hardship, they may respond with more prayer, reflection, and reliance on Allah. This spiritual growth, driven by sincerity, may not be counted as self-actualization in Maslow's terms, but in Islam, it brings the believer closer to Allah, which is the ultimate success. Islam teaches that the purpose of life is not just be happy in the worldly sense, but to be successful in both dunya and akhirah. As Imam Al-Ghazali once said, happiness means fulfilling man's divinely ordained duty as a servant, which is abdu, and vicegerent, Khalifa. Maslow's model is based on a Western individualistic worldview, but the Islamic perspective is God-centered and collectivist. It emphasizes upholding Islamic values, contributing to the Ummah, and living in a way that pleases Allah, not just oneself. In conclusion, the Islamic perspective, which is through Maqasid Sharia, offers a more comprehensive, flexible, and spiritually grounded understanding of human needs. It reminds us that real success is not found at the top of the pyramid, but in the sincere worship of Allah by fulfilling our role as His servants and visitors on earth.
So, I will explain about the limitation of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and I will explain first about the cultural bias, in which, as you all know, Maslow developed the theory based on the Western, in which they are more individualistic in nature, in which they value the personal growth, self-fulfillment, and self-actualization as their ultimate goal, compared to those who are living in the collectivist culture or society, such as Malaysian and Asian. We more prioritize on the family well-being, the harmony of the community, and rather than the individual achievement. So basically, it can be seen that this theory doesn't apply to all the cultural backgrounds, and we can say that this theory are not universally applicable to cultural that we have in our society. So, move to the second one. As you all know, Maslow proposed a strict hierarchy or the rigid hierarchy, meaning that people must fulfill the low level of the pyramid first, or the low level of their needs, then they can move to the next level. However, in our real life, it doesn't always work like that. In which, for example, there is still someone who are poverty but still manage to get married or have a stable relationship compared to others. Another example would be like there is still someone out there who choose to the working environment that expose them to a danger, injury, or anything like that. But they still choose to do that work because it will give them sense of fulfillment, or they want to be recognized by other people. So it can be seen that people can skip or people can neglect one level and move to another level based on their needs or based on what they prioritize more on their life. So I think the limitation is that it is important to recognize the cultural limitation, and also that behavior doesn't always follow the linear path as proposed by the Abraham Maslow. I think that's all. Thank you.
Right. So for the new perspective, we would like to suggest a new level for the hierarchy of needs, which is self-transcendent, and it is equivalent to Islamic concept of ihsan. So basically, ihsan is when people identify something bigger than themselves, where they could also give back to the society. So because in Islam, they mentioned that we Muslims are brothers, so we should help each other, as well as we are encouraged to be more close to our God. And then another suggestion would be to implement the Maqasid Sharia into the hierarchy of needs theory. So basically, the Maqasid Sharia elements should be the guideline for us to achieve the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, each level of the stage. So for example, in a situation where we would like to achieve the stage of love, in the Western world, marriage is not something that is required. So you can have any relationship, even premarital intercourse is allowed in order for you to achieve love. However, in Islam, in order for you to protect your lineage, your religion, it is required for you to go through legal procedures, which is marriage. Therefore, with ihsan and implementation of Maqasid Sharia, we can still achieve every level of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.